Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at how you can beat stage 9 of the Formidable Foes Battle-Hardened event, the movie edition 4, and basically how you can beat it and complete the Fused Fighters mission. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't think Fused Fighters is necessarily the hardest. Overall, if you had to really kind of break these down, I think you'll very quickly find that the Fused Fighters team in general is pretty strong. If you want more information on this event, or just to see it with another team, you can always watch my initial run through where I just use a standard team. Now, in terms of this event, what you want to focus on is a couple of things. Firstly, all the bosses are weak to attack and defense lowering. Every single one of them can have their attack and defense lowered. Most importantly is obviously their attack, because that's going to mitigate how much damage they're going to do. Of course, what you have to understand is that these bosses have such huge attack that simply lowering attack isn't going to have a huge effect, but it is going to be able to assist you in reducing some of that threshold that you need to cross with your defense. Now, if used fighters as a team, even this really strong variant that I'm using is not necessarily a team that starts out incredibly strong. It can have a bit of a pacing issue, largely because the team has units that scale really well. But that first initial turn, if you don't have, for example, the 7th anniversary units on those rotations as your first start tanks in that first turn with their 77% damage reduction and guard, then you are going to have a lot of problems. You're going to have a lot of problems, because the Fused Fighters team, one thing it does lack outside of Gotenks and those two units is first start tanks. And even those units are not what I would say traditional first start tanks. Like, if they stack enough in that first turn, they can be tanky with guard. But remember that critical hits are also something you have to contend with here, so it is necessarily fairly challenging from that sense. So you have Beerus, then you have Frieza, then you have Broly. Beerus and Frieza are two phases. I wouldn't say they're the hardest. Beerus can be a bit of a problem. Remember, he gains attack when you have a Realm of the Gods character present. He is going to be actually tougher to handle for us because our Fused Fighter team is featuring Realm of the Gods units. So this is something we have to bear in mind. Frieza as well is also going to have increased damage because he's facing movie heroes. So Fused Fighters is one of those teams, because of the conditions of the bosses, is actually making the fights harder for you. And I think they understood that when doing the challenge, because Fused Fighters is obviously an incredibly strong team. So I think they had to introduce these kind of buffs just to give a fair, like I said, just to give kind of a functional situation where basically they are kind of hindering you a little bit for using Fused Fighters because of the strength of the team and because of how everything works. Other than that, I think the fights aren't terribly hard. What I will say is that for me, 100%, I think Broly is definitely a huge challenge. So Broly is, of course, a massive challenge to take on. A lot of what makes Broly challenging is the fact that he has 3 phases. So he scales upwards quite nicely. He also has increased damage against Fused Fighters. But the big challenge is actually his AoE attack that he has in his 3rd phase. This can give you a lot of problems. So you may want to hold onto your transformations and other mechanics here at this point so that you can have a good, strong rotation against Broly. I just used items. I know people don't like using items. I like to clear missions. So for me, using items was just an easy way to secure the run against Broly. Again, you don't have to do this, because obviously you can just rely a little bit more on RNG if you want to. My suggestion though is that personally, I found that for me at the very least, it was a lot easier just to pop an item and then deal with Broly's AoE. Because the AoE is the only real problem. And because we have Strength Gogeta on the team, and because we have some units that don't really know how to deal with a 4.2 million super, especially before they super, so before they're able to really kind of elevate their own defense, I felt like using an item just kind of saved me the hassle. If I was going for no item run, obviously I would YOLO it, but generally speaking, that's it. Once you get to the point where you have a AGL Gogeta and a Tech Vegeta, or even just a Tech Vegeta on rotation, generally things get quite easy. A large reason for that is because Tech Vegeta obviously can taunt, has type advantage, and also just does a huge amount of damage. And none of these bosses have a ridiculously high amount of health. So overall, it was a fairly decent time. I would definitely suggest to most players to just kind of bring attack lowering, bring stunning for the first couple of stages if you can. But Fuse Fighters is a very good team, so I think you still have all the tools you need to deal with it. But yeah, bye.